Story 1. I am more concerned now than I was before, and I didn't think that was possible. We are in serious trouble. Story 2. It is surprising that Bill Clinton was president 30 years ago and is younger than both of those individuals. Story 3. Go watch some old debates between Kennedy and Nixon and compare their rhetoric, diction, vocabulary, demeanor, and answers to today's candidates. You will see how far backward we have gone. Story 4. It is like two people who should not have a driver's license. One is the typical older man who insists that his driving is fine. The other is the typical road rager who insists he is the best driver. Story 5. Democrats should have spent the past 4 years preparing a younger candidate to succeed Biden. Story 6. It makes me sad. Since this is gaining attention, I urge anyone who reads this to use it as a turning point. We, as a nation, are better than this. Our leaders are driving us apart because it makes us weak if we are divided. We all know this situation is harmful. We all deserve better, but it is not going to change on its own. We must work to improve it ourselves. America can still be great, but we can only achieve greatness by moving beyond our divisions. We need to do this together. Engage with someone who has different opinions and engage in meaningful dialogue. Peace and love to everyone. We can accomplish this. Story 7. The debate used to be a useful forum for candidates to discuss their beliefs on certain issues and analyze their opponent's stances, but now it has become like reality television. I mean, way back in the 20th century, not 20 years ago. This is not a new problem. Story 8. I'm disappointed about all of it. They spent half of their time criticizing each other and the other half praising their past performance in vague and generalized ways, instead of answering important questions with direct and articulate responses. This is an amazing country, flaws and strengths considered, but our candidates don't feel like our candidates. They are at the top of the contention mostly because of their resources and tactics in politics, and hardly because the average American sees them as a suitable or even desired choice to lead the country. I wish we had better choices. I'm tired of the whole partisan theme and the division mentality, the fear-mongering and pandering, and how media coverage shapes awareness, along with the influence of political action committees. Each election cycle feels less and less hopeful. How can someone reasonably get excited about and support this process when it feels like it is becoming less representative and beneficial to the typical American? Story 9. I could barely understand Biden at times, and Trump didn't answer some of the questions he was asked. At one point, the debate devolved into a discussion about golf. Story 10. If they took two homeless individuals and put them on the stage, they would have been more interesting and would actually have ideas. Story 11. You slept with an adult film star. Your son is a criminal. I will beat you in golf. You are a loser and an idiot. This is typical high school mean girl behavior. Story 12. We are in serious trouble. Our country is struggling, and the quality of our presidential candidates reflects a deeper issue in our democracy. This situation is a result of our system being influenced by lobbyists and special interest groups, which sway our candidates and voters toward the degradation of our democratic institutions and their replacement with a plutocracy. Story 13. The question remains, why are men over 75 even able to run for president? They do not live in our reality. Story 14. A German journalist made a notable comment about the debate. It feels like everybody lost, especially the people in the United States. Story 15. The Democratic Party should not have allowed Joe to run again. They could have found someone decent to challenge Trump. Story 16. It was a remarkably poor performance. I say this as a liberal who desperately wants us to win. It was the worst debate performance I've ever seen. Debates are not substantive. They are performative. They focus on looking good, confident, capable, and in charge. By that metric, tonight's performance should absolutely prompt discussion about replacing Biden. He was asked about abortion, our major winning issue, and pivoted to a story about illegal immigration, our weakest issue. He was asked about his age and talked about microchips. Anyone claiming he made good points or that Trump was lying is missing the bigger picture. Story 17. The Democratic Party in the United States had an entire decade to find a viable candidate and accomplished very little. This is the result. Put your grandfather out there and hope he can hold it together. Vladimir is losing one war and winning another. Story 18. Let's put it this way. I haven't seen the country this united since September 11th. All it took was two poorly qualified candidates for everyone to realize how challenged we all are. Story 19. It became clear why this administration doesn't allow Biden to do interviews or answer questions without a teleprompter. That was difficult to watch. I can't believe he prepared for a week at Camp David just for this debate. Story 20. We need to make fundamental changes that allow third parties to participate in the government. Both Republicans and Democrats represent the wealthy elite. The government has been effectively captured by corporate interests. Both Biden and Trump are unfit to be president at this time. The debate was an embarrassing spectacle. Is this really the best we can do to lead our nation? Story 21. Sign of the times. The United States is not what it used to be, and baby boomers need to step aside at this point. Story 22. I prepared a long comment but deleted it because there's an easier way to summarize this. We are in trouble. Story 23. It is beyond boring. Biden keeps stuttering and sounding old, while Trump avoids questions to virtue signal for several minutes as the moderators allow it. Neither of them is clever or good at debate. They both seem mentally slow. I wish we could have some younger presidents instead of these older individuals. Story 24. I feel compelled to vote for someone I do not want, because many other people in this country are accepting lies and supporting unworthy candidates. Story 25. Can't you do something to intervene? I'm sitting here on the other side of the Atlantic with my head in my hands. That was a terrible situation. Story 26. It is difficult to imagine anyone remaining undecided on issues, but it is unfortunately easy to envision people being turned off by the negative optics of the night. Hopefully, it is more of a situation where people are rolling their eyes rather than a Nixon-Kennedy scenario. Story 27. We had 4 years of Trump. We had 4 years of Biden. We know what both are like. Why even bother with a debate? Story 28. If Trump wins, it will be the fault of the Democratic Party for not providing a viable candidate. They have had 4 years to solve this problem and allowed the ego of an old man past his prime and the tradition of supporting the incumbent to replace logic and the need to preserve the democratic process. They made the same mistake with Clinton. They underestimated Trump and felt they had to repay Clinton's $3 million loan to the party by letting her run as the chosen candidate. Both parties are corrupted by money and power, and the result is what we have in front of us now. No real choice. Story 29. I think Trump was as we expected. Regarding Biden, I see many people who previously thought it was just a stutter now believe that his cognitive abilities are impaired. Story 30. Trump said he won club championships and claims Biden can't even hit the ball 50 yards. I was going to vote for Trump until Biden mentioned he has an impressive 6 handicap. Now I support Biden. Story 31. Hands down, this situation is dire. I am old enough to remember Ronald Reagan, both George Bush's, both Bill Clinton's, and Barack Obama. I recall the Dean scream, Dan Quayle, and the potato incident, and George Bush mispronouncing nuclear. Additionally, for Texans, I remember and Richards and Clayton Williams. We are in significant trouble. This is serious. Everything else, including Reagan and his approach to AIDS, pales in comparison to this crisis. Story 32. Van Jones summed it up perfectly. We have a candidate who should not be running the country and a candidate who is not capable of running the country. Story 33. An unmitigated disaster for the entire world. They need to remove Biden from his position and replace him with any competent Democrat. Story 34. Let's imagine that instead of running for president, they were auditioning to mow my lawn. I would feel irresponsible letting Biden near a lawnmower, and I believe that Trump would agree to do the job but then take my money without actually doing any work. Story 35. One person cannot tell the truth, and the other cannot disclose his location. The fact that these are our choices for President of the United States is a disgrace. There is absolutely no reason that either of these individuals should hold the presidency. We must do better. Story 36. I tuned in from Canada and turned it on a bit late. Biden seems to be nearing the end of his capacity to lead. There is no way he can be a functional president. His thoughts are incomplete. And then there's Trump. Is this really the best the United States can offer? The situation in Canada isn't great either. Politics feels like a joke. Story 37. If that performance doesn't convince the Democrats to nominate someone else to run against Trump, nothing will. Story 38. I voted for Biden in 2020, but he needs to step aside now. He cannot do it. He will leave a legacy like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who should have stepped down for the future of the country. A good leader knows when they can no longer lead. Story 39. Team Biden's goal was to recast himself as healthy, astute, and sharp. He did none of that and actually made things worse. The Democratic National Committee needs to convince him not to seek another term so someone else can step in. If he runs, it's over. Story 40. My view on the matter is this. President Biden is not mentally fit for the role, and it is clearly evident. At this point, the only votes he secures are votes against former President Trump, and unfortunately, that will not be enough to win the election. What were they thinking? The Democratic Party could have easily won this election, but they have squandered the opportunity by selecting a candidate who appears significantly out of touch. Story 41. Nobody is going to convince me that this wasn't the plan all along for the Democratic National Committee. There is no other reason to have the debate in June before the nomination was accepted, making it the earliest debate ever, if I remember correctly. Anyone who knew Joe Biden would have had to know he wasn't in any condition to debate for 90 minutes without a teleprompter. I wish I could find my notes from January that mentioned a potential Newsom bait and switch in midsummer. CNN didn't take more than 30 seconds before discussing how bad this situation was and how they needed to look for a replacement. This felt like a coordinated attack. Everyone who told us we were crazy for pointing out how old and deteriorated Biden looked over the last few months and years was denying reality. Now, let's hope, though it's unlikely, that the Republican Party will follow suit with a better candidate as well. Story 42. I hate Trump, but it's difficult to say that Biden is fully competent anymore. I want both of them removed from office so we can choose someone else. Story 43. You put all of the third-party candidates with Trump and Biden, and you will find a more likely clear winner. These two just participated in the worst debate ever. Story 44. It is concerning that these individuals have the authority to decide whether or not to press the button that could lead to the destruction of the world. Story 45. This election feels like a dystopian farce. On one side, you have someone who won't stop talking. On the other, someone who is unintelligible. How did we even get here? Story 46. The format is ineffective. Great leaders do not rely on clever remarks. They lead with vision, collaboration, teamwork, and competence. Imagine a debate format that showcases these qualities. Candidates guiding their teams, addressing real issues, and demonstrating their ability to inspire and manage. It is time to evolve our expectations and focus on what truly matters. The ability to lead, not just to perform. Story 47. From what I see, Biden's mental and physical state is concerning, and 4 more years will be impossible. Of course, those around him want to keep their jobs. Story 48. We watched as a family with our kids. We all agreed that if we had to vote tonight based on that debate, we would choose either moderator over the two candidates. Story 49. It is clear that voters are heading to the polls to either support Trump or oppose him. I believe that anyone with rational thought cannot look at Biden and think he is fit to engage with the public alone, let alone lead the world's most powerful country. He and Kamala appear to be disconnected from Americans. I am genuinely concerned about what will happen with this election. Neither outcome represents forward progress for our country. Story 50. Frustrating, some of the questions posed about climate change and childcare are sticking points for me, while they were too busy arguing about nothing significant. The moderators were not helpful either. It was a disappointing day for America and the world, as far as I am concerned. Story 51. Trump was saved by the microphone cutting out. Biden appeared as if the Grim Reaper was waiting for him after he got off stage. Story 52. The format was poor, with no fact-checking and no interest from the moderators in keeping the discussion on topic. Trump quickly realized he could speak freely and discuss whatever he wanted, turning it into just another campaign event for himself. Story 53. Trump performed better than I expected, and it makes me uncomfortable that he lies so often without facing consequences. Unfortunately, Biden is not sharp enough to effectively confront him. Story 54. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a person who was considered unconventional by much of the public, would have outperformed both of them. America is in a dire state until Generation X begins to take on important positions. I'm pleading as a member of Generation Z. Story 55. Never get into an argument with a foolish person. They will drag you down to their level and then proceed to defeat you with experience. Mark Twain. Story 56. It keeps me laughing. Trump is over-talking and boasting, while Biden mutters nonsense and stares off like a lost puppy. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.